Welcome to GRC Uncensored, a new podcast designed to elevate real conversations with GRC professionals, auditors, regulators, and those building programs around it. Your hosts Troy Fine and Kendra Cooley, alongside producer Elliot Volkman, guide unfiltered discussions that dig into the reality of how governance, risk, and compliance function, rather than the rose-colored perspective that's fueled by millions in marketing spend. Now, onto your hosts.
I'm your producer, Elliot Volkman, and today we have Mr. Kevin Kriebel, who is the VP of BizDev over at Drata. He probably does way more than that, so don't let the title kind of distract you. We're going to be talking about two things, mostly about auditor independence. So I know the company that you work for, they have a pretty strong public stance about that. But as part of that, there's like sub-tiers of conversations that we want to highlight as well, of like the intersection point of like how vendors connect people with auditors, if there's any impact on pricing, stuff of that nature. But we'll get to that down the line. So Kevin, I'm going to give you the soapbox back. Share your piece, share your mind, whatever you want, auditor independence or otherwise. Maybe even go back to the topic of a particular other company.
Yeah. I want to make very clear before I joined Drata, I had no experience in the audit world or GRC space whatsoever. I think that's pretty important because I'm learning all this. Troy, obviously, we were colleagues for a couple of years. I learned a lot from Troy in the early days. And I think, it's interesting. I think one of the first things that came to my mind, Troy and I had a conversation about this in the early days, was, audit firms, they can't really, give commentary on the different tools in the space or provide recommendations. I'm like, but don't audit firms send you a Google sheet to fill out, like a Google Doc? Yeah. Are they recommending Google Docs? No. Okay. Then I don't see why we can't do the same thing. Right. I think there's independence. I get it, but it's also like at the same time, every market at some point at the time and place we are in the history of the world is, check is coming in. And then there's going to be AI and whatever's next, who knows. But I think this is one of the final frontiers where the audit world has kind of kept the wall up between them and software. I think there's a lot of reasons for that I think makes sense. And there's some reasons that I think are probably like we're afraid to change. And it cuts both ways. This whole idea of independence, it's a pretty broad term. Like Troy, you probably, you are an auditor. You have experience with that. I think that term, like, I would start by asking, like, Troy, from your perspective, why does independence matter and how does it matter? Like specifically, as opposed to just some big term from your perspective.
Well, why does it matter? Because that's the core of the integrity of the audit, right? I mean, someone performing an audit and they have, let's just use conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Can they be impartial if they have a conflict of interest when they do the audit? And if someone's relying on that report, right? I do an audit and someone relies on the work that I do. They knew that there was a conflict of interest when I was doing that audit. Would they have less confidence if they knew that, right? So to protect the independence of an audit firm is really protecting the people relying on the report because they're hoping they want the independence that they know that's a true audit. It's authentic, it's as independent as it can be. I get paid by my clients, right? So obviously you can't eliminate independence, right? 100%.
For sure.
That's impossible, but you try to reduce it as much as possible because of it. And that's why I believe it's important.
So I totally agree with you, right? But then the next step to that is, okay, you believe it's important, but what is forcing you to actually to act on that, right? So like if I think about like our government checks and balances and the integrity of what's supposed to be, we say integrity, but is it actually being enforced? So right now, I'm correct in saying it's the CPA in theory, who's supposed to be basically the governing body ensuring integrity and making rulings. Is that correct? So
yes, we'll say yes. It's a little more nuanced than that, but yeah, sure.
Of course it is. But in your opinion, so let's ACPA or others, whatever, the governing bodies that have the ability to put these audit firms in check when they are not acting the way that you are saying they should, which we agree on that. Do you think that they are doing the job that they should be doing to keep that at where it should be at?
The TPA doing their job?
You don't have to say it's just in general, whatever body or bodies in general, do you think Because it's not, Drata doesn't have the ability to tell an audit firm, you suck, we're going to put you out of business, right?
Oh, I see what you're
can't.
saying. Yeah.
So the people who are actually supposed to enforce that integrity, governing bodies, do you feel like they're doing the job they should be doing?
Well, that's what I mean when I said yes. It's not really the AICPA. A lot of it
Okay.
is states. That's the problem. I think part of this too, if you don't understand, is that when you're a registered CPA firm, you're registered with the state you live in, and you have to follow
Correct.
their rules.
Yep.
Actually.
Yep.
So the AICPA can't really enforce independence over how many CPA.
Yeah, like I
firms
said, whether it's one body or many bodies, do you feel like
Yeah.
the bodies that are in charge, that are responsible for holding audit firms in check, are doing the job at the level they should be doing?
Yeah, but there's some things in the SOC 2 space that are not being done properly. I would say
Correct.
if we're just looking at SOC 2 space, no, there's some things that are being missed. And I think I've been
Go.
posted about that and how the oversight needs to be better in this space and force companies keep that in check.
And that's kind of what we talked about before. I've done a post on this as well, but like in a capitalist society, I went to school for business, took a fair amount of econ classes. Like in my opinion, right, the forcing function, sure, the governing bodies, whatever, but there's a lot of red tape there. At the end of the day, if enterprises, who are the reason all these startups are going after SOC 2 in the first place, or ISO or HIPAA or GDPR or whatever, or saying, hey, that audit firm or that audit that you got done is just not up to the standard that we're willing to accept it at, those firms go out of business. And those type of practices go away. It doesn't even forget about the governing bodies. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Because the end result of who we're trying to present this to and, prove ourselves to saying, hey, that's not enough. We set the bar. But now the other challenge, flip side of that is, I was in Australia a couple of years ago for Drata, we're doing our partners out there, some of the audit firms. And we met with one of the largest banks in all of Asia Pacific. And they're telling us we had 4,000 vendors. They filled out a security questionnaire. They sent us their SOC 2, but we only really have the bandwidth and the resources to validate like 80 of those 4,000. Right? So this is where I'm saying this is also part of the vendor market, the Drata's in and others, where it's like, it's not just compliance for your internal, but how do you more easily assess and validate the vendors you're going after, right? So is it really the enterprise being like, hey, you're not being particular enough? It's like, how could you be? If you're JP Morgan, you have tens of thousands of vendors. Are you going through tens of thousands? I don't know. I don't work at JP Morgan. I'm not in that team. That does seem insane. Like it doesn't really scale. So that's my question of, how do you kind of create standards, but at the same time, make them enforceable versus just checkbox compliance, right? Now, undoubtedly, checkbox compliance is on the rise, but it's kind of also because that's the market. That's been enabled because it's true. You don't have any vendors.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think we're talking about two different things, right? One, we're talking about independence, and two, quality of audit. I think those are, yes, they go hand in hand, right? If you're not independent, it's a low quality audit. I think you could be independent and do a low quality audit. So
100%.
I guess
100%.
What my question would be is where does the line get crossed with some of the relationships that firms are having with some of these platforms? And we don't have to, I want to call a name, just in your mind, where does the line get crossed, or where is the line, or is it getting crossed, or are we all just wrong?
So there's, it's for sure money is exchanging hands. We got some problems, right? I think we can all agree if, it's different. We have like our resellers that we give them a margin. If they bring us deals, like that's just the way the world works. That's the industry, no problem. We're not paying auditors to bring us deals. Are we sending leads back to auditors? Yes. But are we doing, I think, a pretty good job? Like my audit alliance team is all ex-auditors. I think that's pretty important. We don't hire anyone who doesn't have that audit background. You know that, Troy, you've been part of interviewing a lot of those folks. So we're doing the best we can to do due diligence to make sure those audit firms are above board. There have been auditors where, part of the challenge we run into is one audit firm has, 5,000 plus customers, and there's one audit firm that's working with a lot of those customers, and maybe that audit firm isn't up to speed. So now what we have, you've got a delicate dance. We've done this a couple of times throughout the history of Drata, is saying, hey, we've identified this audit firm is not at the level where the integrity that we want them to be at is our standard. So we got to walk away. But they're also the auditor for 100 plus of our customers. So like now, how do we figure this dance out. Like we're pulling away from them, but we're trying to save those customers because now that audit firm is going to say, hey, forget Drata. We don't work with them. Right. And the question now is that customer going to trust us or the audit firm? We go to that customer and say, hey, we're telling you that audit firm is not right. And you long term, this is not where you want to be. But they're like, but price is more important to us. And we're giving our SOC 2 report to this big bank and they don't seem to care. And that's the challenge that we get caught in constantly at Drata. But I'm sure other players in the space are getting caught at that. I think we've made the choice to say, hey, we're going to take the hit because long term, we're okay with that. If we lose some customers, the integrity matters more to us. We can't say that trust is our mission and not prioritize that. So I think that's the challenge. But it's also, I think you're seeing audit firms who are hiring CROs. They're building a sales team. So we are treating them like a vendor in certain respects where it's like, hey, we're doing account sharing, et cetera. We do have a relationship. I don't think, again, it's my opinion, but for an audit firm to say, hey, we think Drata does a really good job, to have that opinion and to say, hey, they're doing well and it's backed by, I think, what you've seen so far. They can say, hey, we have a lot of customers that have had a ton of success with Drata. That to me isn't breaking independence. I think where the breaking independence becomes is like, hey, Drata is sending to this audit firm because we know this audit firm will approve anybody for SOC 2, right? And we're doing that so that our customer will like us. We have shied away from it. We've made sure that we're not doing it. And I can't speak for the competitors, but that means there's a lot of audit firms that we're not working with, or we're very cautious on and pushing back on. Like I could, sure I can show you emails in my inbox, but it's a tight dance. It's not my job to put some of these firms out of business. I'm not trying to start a holy war over GRC. That's not what I'm interested in. But yeah, I think that's like the finance that I struggle with every day. I think we've done a pretty good job, not a perfect job, but a pretty good job. And again, I think this comes back to, what's happened very quickly is companies with 100 or less employees would have never gone after SOC 2 6-7 years ago. And now it's more approachable than it's ever been. So my question would also be like, is SOC 2 enough? Do enterprises start to say, hey, I need more than SOC 2? Is there going to be new standards? That's interesting to me. That's cool. That doesn't hurt us at all. We're good with that. But I think, I don't know, just being realistic. Troy, you and I would talk about this all the time. SOC 2 doesn't mean you're not going to get breached.
Well, yeah, definitely. But I do want to, we could talk about that too. But I have a question. Have you ever fed stingrays before? Well, I'm going somewhere with this. Have you? Have you ever sat in the ocean and fed stingrays? Well, stingrays will actually let you feed them, and they'll be huge. They'll up to you. They'll let you feed you. Do you know why? Because they know that they don't bite the hand that feeds them. And where I'm going with this is, do you think audit firm, because part of independence is when your judgment on an audit could be influenced or impaired, right? So if some of these firms started because the platforms started giving them a ton of work, right? Or some practices at established firms, they end up in doing SOC 2, and they started, we have these platforms, we can start partnering with them. Let's just say you partner with 3 firms and 90% of your revenue for that practice, that SOC 2 practice, comes from 3 or 4 automation platforms. Sure. I'm not saying Drata and the like, it's their responsibility to control that.
Yeah.
From your opinion, if you're, let's just say your oversight of these firms, if you knew that 90% of the revenue was coming from 4 referral sources, do you think that their judgment is impaired when they're doing audits for clients referred from these people? Because they know that they can't bite the hand that feeds them. And if they start making the clients exceptions or saying, hey, this platform didn't do this well, and why didn't you do this right?
Yeah.
That's a problem if they're not going to use their judgment now because they want the referral.
It's definitely possible, but I think, and this is, again, my opinion, where it's like, what we're looking at is we're asking audit firms to become more sales leading in the way that they build their organization, right? So instead of sitting back and just taking, because our customers got to go somewhere, they need an audit firm. So we have the auditor directory. We try to stay agnostic as possible. If a customer says, hey, what's your opinion? They ask this CSM or that CSM. CSM has certain experience with these audit firms. This CSM has certain experience with these audit firms, right? No different than an auditor can say, I've had experience with this and this, and they state their opinion. I don't think they should be prevented from stating their opinion based on that. But what I'm getting at is that they're becoming more, the good audit firms, the right ones are becoming more sufficient on going out and getting their own business without that, right? Those are the companies that are truly going to scale. And those are the companies that, frankly, I think companies like us are more interested in working with, because it is, hey, we're trying to help each other and find each other business. Yes, I'm sure there is some like for like where it's like, hey, you're sending us business. But again, there's plenty of audit firms out there that'll send us stuff and we're like, we're not sending you anything because we don't trust you as an audit firm. Our customers are not having a good experience with you because it's not about, oh, you were too hard on the audit. It's like they actually we're starting to see some enterprises, not a lot, but some say, never heard of that audit firm. We're not taking that SOC 2, right? Or they're, you've seen this. Again, you know which audit firms we're talking about, but they're not doing a good job of doing the audit. And there's just literally pieces of the report that are completely missing. They're not even there, right? Like some of this stuff is so incomplete and so inaccurate, and we're checking them. I think part of the challenge as well, again, most of the customers that we serve today are down market. We're getting more up market, but they're in the middle of their audit. They don't even know necessarily what good versus bad looks like because they've never been through it before.
Yeah.
That's the other challenge is, okay, how do we navigate that? Right? We can check in on them, say, how's the audit going? They're like, I think it's going okay, but they don't know. They don't know. And so again, this is where it's really difficult. We're trying to work more with audit firms and get more cohesive and make sure that we're not violating the standard of independence. But again, this is where my opinion, not fact, my opinion, is that the independence that has traditionally been in the industry and then the dependence that I think you've seen come up in how quickly the space has grown. There's somewhere in between. It's probably the right fit. There's probably too independent where it's like, hey, actually, you can't have an opinion. You should have an opinion, especially with these customers who are newer to this space. They need an opinion. They need help because it's not just for auditing JPMC anymore. It's all these companies that are trying, and good for them, but trying to get more compliant earlier. I think that's a good thing overall. But there is, and this is my opinion, the biggest problem we have is the education gap. That is what's happening. I think if you fix the education gap, then a lot of this snake oil selling, which that's what's happening. There's a lot of, the customer goes, well, this compliance automation vendor told me I can get it in 30 days. Of course you believe that because there's nothing out there to tell you differently. You always say someone's SOC 2 certification. It's not a certification. It's an attestation. You can automatically know when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about. The education isn't there. So that's what I'm saying. The audit firms, we can do it, but I would love, I'll give you another example. There's a decent sized audit firm out there who we send some business to, and they have maintained price integrity. Proud of them for doing that. Even when their competitors slash at half the price. Okay. And they're like, but it's hard for us. I'm like, you need to get your enterprise customer to tell the market, we care who audits. If you do that, it'll help you with price integrity. If you do that, it'll help you against these kind of lower price. And maybe the prices for audits have always been too high and they need to go. I don't know. I can't think of that. I'm not an expert in that. But again, it's probably somewhere in between. That's the thing I'm trying to get in. It's an education. If you fix the educational, these customers who undoubtedly by some folks are getting preyed on by audit firms and I think players in our space, I'm sure there have been moments in the history of all these competitors where they've said something out of both sides of the mouth to a customer that was 20 people strong trying to convince them. But if the education there, you see what I'm saying? That's where I think the biggest gap is.
So let me jump in there real quick there.
Yeah.
So Troy, you and I had a conversation kind of around that pay component last week. Kevin, this is where I'll give the opportunity if I have the magic edit button so I can just go past this if you're uncomfortable. Okay. So there's rumors, whatever, in our world, and it is not aimed at Drata, make that very clear, about price fixing kind of feels like the right way to say it. But let's say vendors are the instigator to say, you should set your pricing for here, here, and here. And they're influencing and saying it. Influencing is one thing, but there's maybe one vendor that would directly tell them, this is how you should price in whatever manner. Thoughts on that particular subject? Or Troy, did I butcher that? Does that
No,
So,
I think you
okay.
got, I think either you charge this price or you don't get referrals. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing BD for a while. I've done it, some biggest companies in Palo Alto Networks. There's a term called bundling, and I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with it, right? That's the reason when you're talking about the reason you do it is because you're bundling. Now, I can tell you, as long as I am running the show for BD and Drata, we're never doing bundling. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, it inflates your ARR as a software company. You shouldn't, in my opinion, because you're talking about a 0% margin game. It's absurd. Also, there's NRR issues. That's just at the commercial level. From an integrity standpoint, here's what you have now. You have a customer who is buying a package and does not know what they are actually getting and at what price, right? And so what's happening is, again, whatever vendors are doing that, they're asking to get the audit price to a certain point so they can make the total package be a certain thing, right? Because they know how much they're going to charge for their solution, and they know how much the audit needs to be at this set price. We will never do that. Again, as long as I'm running the show at Drata for, again, a litany of reasons. That's the number one reason there is because there's no transparency. If we go to that customer decides to move from that vendor to us, and I'm like, okay, how much did you pay for the audit? And how much did you pay for your subscription? Because it's like, well, we need you to match the price. We're like, how much did you pay for the software? We don't know. Okay. Why did you buy it? Well, it's again, the educational gap, right? These are people a lot of these people are first-time buyers. That's problematic. We maintain it, and sure, Elliot, you both know, you worked here at Drata. We have a price list. We know what the price is already. For smaller customers, it's set where there's not nearly as much dynamic need for scoping. Those auditors have already said, hey, this is our price. We didn't ask them to set it at a certain price. They just say, here's our price. We do have audit firms that'll go, hey, what price do we need to be competitive? And we go, no, we're not telling you, right? We have NDAs. I can't tell you what the other audit. If you go talk to another customer, they tell you without, then no problem. But we're not going to share, say, hey, same thing on our virtual CISOs, like they charge this much for pen testing. So you can charge this. As soon as I do that, I'm breaking all the NDAs we have signed. I've destroyed our partner ecosystem and our audit ecosystem.
Do you think that's happening?
Oh, it's for sure happening. Yeah, we know that. But it's been happening. It's not wrong. It's been happening for a while.
Oh, I mean, in the audit, GRC and the audit automation space now.
Yeah, there's the bundling stuff that's been going on for a while. You've also got vendors in our space they're doing it themselves, right? It's like they sell the solution and they do the services in-house, et cetera. And now, is that a gray area? Maybe, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But as someone who I think has done okay running partnership programs, why would you take the services opportunity away from your partners? You're now competing with your partner. That's crazy. If you CrowdStrike, yeah, sure, everybody's hooked on your software, fine. But we're not CrowdStrike, right? Come on, CrowdStrike. That's insane. So again, I can go on and on about the list of reasons why you shouldn't do that from a just business sense standpoint, but at least from an integrity standpoint, you don't do it right by the customer. That's not the right. Allow them. I think the problem is these customers who haven't bought before, they're more immature. They want the easy button. And to be fair, bundling is the easy button. It is. You go on Amazon, you buy stuff on Amazon's got bundles. I bought sauna accessories that were bundled. I don't even know what I paid for each thing. I just sounded like a better deal. So as consumers, like we like bundling, I think, but it's on us to kind of educate the customer. Here's why bundling isn't in your favor.
And I'm guessing that enterprise companies or people that are intelligent, who are relying on these reports, know what's going on, right? I mean, they know, and I guess they know what's going on, but they know they can't do anything about it. They're looking for somebody else to do something about it. Not saying they're looking for the platform to do something about it, but this always comes back to this question. I think everyone knows what's going on. Like you mentioned, JP Morgan has tons of vendors to review. How can they review them?
Yeah,
you're right. They can't, and they can't make sure that this audit was, this SOC 2 audit was done by this company, and we don't trust this company. So guess what? Now I got to go find the people that are using this vendor and tell them at big bank, hey, we can't use this vendor and deal with all that. They're not going to do that for every vendor, right? They're relying on the ecosystem. The problem is, who's going to solve the problem? Nobody wants to take accountability or responsibility for it. And I think we all know what's going on, but nobody has a solution for it. And
I
oversight, you can say oversight of the firms, but that's not happening. And so I guess, where does this go? If this is going to continue to happen, does the whole credibility of compliance just go to nothing? And then guess what? My audits don't matter. Drata's platform doesn't matter. It all kind of hurts all of us, I guess, in the long term, right?
I think
not
the
just
thing that's
SOC too. It could be all of them, right?
Yeah, I think the thing that's telling us, again, when I was at Palo, I expanded for that before we got acquired by Palo, we went into every meeting with CISOs and they would go like, yeah, your tech's great, we'll probably buy it, but do you have anything for TPRM? That was a thing that I heard I've been hearing that for a decade. And I think that's coming, right? Like Drata has our own TPRM stuff. I think that the TPRM market is coming up and up. I think AI is going to have a big role in that as well. I think this starts to become more scalable where enterprises can put their foot down when the TPRM functionality for some of these platforms gets to the level they need it to be, where they can actually scale. Like that's all I think about day and night is I think that right now, Inside Security Scorecard, they're doing everything they can from the outside in, giving you a score, but that's only so useful. I think that both firms are doing a better job of like, how do we make our scores more impactful and more actionable? But that whole being able to enforce isn't really going to be a thing until the enterprises have a better way to scale how they manage, how they validate, and how they continuously monitor their vendors, right? I do think though, like, SOC, 40,000 vendors, whatever. There's got to be a way to quickly say, hey, it's SOC 2, and these are the audit firms that we've never heard of, and let's push back. Like, I get it. Hey, this team within the bank wants to buy, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They could push back, but at the end of the day, this is important to our business. And, we need it for whatever reason,
So I think the other thing to keep in mind is like Drata's heavily funded VC-backed firm, right? So is most of our competitors. So if we were to take a stand tomorrow and say, hey, these audit firms that are charging less, we don't really have anything to say that they're not legit, but we're going to stop allowing them to audit our customers. One, we would, that's not really up to us. Our customers, in theory, can add whoever they want to to auditor access to the platform. Or, as the API gets better, that they integrate with some of the other audit management platform, then we won't even know who the audit firm is, right? But let's pretend we're able to do that and all of our customers down market are like, hey, price is what's most important to us. They're all just going to go. So it has to be all of the competitors all at once do that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the biggest threat to our oceans isn't plastic. It's overfishing by a landslide. And that means all of us together have to start eating less fish. But I'm selfish. I'm not going to start eating less fish until I see you eating less fish. You know what I mean? You also recognize like it's almost like prisoner's dilemma. We're humans. This is how we operate. So I get it. It's totally a challenge. And again, I want to go back to what I said at the beginning. I do not have a background in GRC. I have never been in your shoes. To me, I think the part that I have the most empathy for is someone like you, Troy, who's been an auditor, still is an auditor, that think this is your world. You grew up in this. You built this. And you're watching the quality that matters to you, the integrity that matters to you get questioned, right? Of this whole space that you're in. And that to me would be really frustrating. I totally get that. And that, again, I think we're doing a pretty good job at Drata, trying to be a good partner, but we're only one of the players. There's a lot of players in this space. I'm not saying all of them are working against or working for, but it takes all of us. And I've never done that. I've never been part of it.
No, it's interesting. It might seem like I'm frustrated, but I'm actually not frustrated. My approach has always been, I will do the way I want to. I'll do what I think is right. I'll audit the way we want to. And that's what our firm does.
Sure.
The people that are frustrated and complaining are the ones that I hear complaining about it are the ones that just aren't charging the lowest price and they are getting their referrals from the platform that they built their practice, but they're not willing to drop their price as low as some of those other people. Those are the ones I see complaining. I really just want awareness of what's going on. And if we all think this is okay, this is good, I'm going to adjust just like you would, Kevin. Free market. I'm like you, entrepreneur, figure it out and we'll adjust to the rules in the market. But there's a reason why we have our own sources. I'll just be honest. We get referrals, but they're usually not typically the right clients for us. And, that's just how we operate. And we have a different business model. but we're not relying on one source for revenues. We have a different approach. So I'm not really frustrated by it. For now, I'm okay, but it's more just me trying to make people aware and make a more informed decision. But if they're okay with this, then I'm okay with it. Honest. I mean, I'm not okay with it. I can't control it is what I'm trying to say. I can only make people aware.
But as you just said, that's it. That I'm telling you, that is 95% is information. Is that we just went through an election, right? Where elections all based on education and based on perception of what people think. Like we have that. That is the amount of information that then leads to disinformation because it's all at our fingertips. It's confusing. Like, I mean, we're all close in age together. Like when we were in school and wrote book reports, you had a bibliography, you had a cite your sources. You don't have to do that anymore. There's no more citing sources. It's not a thing. Like, yeah, it's funny, but it's real, right? So you can just say whatever
that covers it.
Yeah.
You got ChatGPT. That covers ChatGPT.
Oh, like I saw some post on LinkedIn today by one of those corporate Natalie, whoever it is, where it's like looking at people's LinkedIn's and like their little slogan. I'm a change agent, whatever. And she's just making like, oh, you're a change agent? No way. I can't believe it. It's okay. It's just, anyways, it's a lot of words. But I think the other thing that you guys kind of talked about, and we talked about before, and again, this goes back into education. I think education and incentive are the two main things that drive the world, right? You got to have both hand in hand. Is a lot of these firms where they're like, hey, I'm pressing this as the easy button. And it doesn't matter to me if I have the right people or the right process in place. This solution will do it for them. And anyone who thinks that's what SaaS is sorely mistaken, right? Like thinking that I can just buy a piece of software and that is a silver bullet. Okay. That's just not it. Like everywhere I've been at $2 billion exits. I was in Auction in the early days. Those are all great companies, great tech, but you still have to have the right people. You have to have the right people implemented. At the end of the day, Drata is monitoring. We are alerting you to issues. If you don't have the ability to go solve those issues, the right process in place to remediate, et cetera, cool. You're cooked. It doesn't matter what the software does. And that's the other challenge of it. I'm sure a lot of people that are buying software the first time are like, hey, this is just the easy buy. Again, there's an educational gap. You got people that have a 10-person company, have nobody with any security background. So, that again, the question remains of, I think it's really great that folks are prioritizing security and compliance at an early stage. They're showing that by investing in like technology, but they also have to invest in people, right? So that's where, again,
I wouldn't even say a 10-person company. Part of the problem is 10-person company probably doesn't even need a full-blown SOC 2 audit to mitigate risk. If you were to ask me, like, I wouldn't, that's a whole different discussion, but yeah, that could also be part of this too. Like all these companies are being forced to do it and really need to. Maybe do something like way lightweight and be okay, right? That's also part of TPRM, but anyway, it's another discussion.
But that goes back into, again, the enterprises that are requiring it. Cool. They're just, that's not a Drata thing. That's not an auditor-led thing. That is the market, meaning the behemoths are saying, we need your SOC 2, right? I can't sell to them. And if I can't sell to them, I can't get the VC to do my A round. If I can't get that, then I won't survive. And I got to go back to working, at a job that I didn't like before. I want to be my own boss and run my own business. Like it's all cyclical. Again, my opinion. It's not Drata's opinion. It's not your opinion. My strong conviction, I should say, is that the real change is going to have to come from the enterprises that are requiring these proof of compliance. That is who has to do it. Now, does that get fueled by?
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, by better TPRM functionality? Maybe. Does it mean, hey, they need to invest more, so they're lowering their margins and spend more on security so they can do more validation? Maybe. I don't know. I've never worked at any of those firms.
Well, I mean, it's simple to me, right? I mean, look, I think you can't boil the ocean with all this, right?
Sure.
Let's just start off simple, right? Okay. If you're in TPRM right now, and I'm not naming names, but if you see certain firms' names on the report and they are directly affiliated or you don't believe they're independent, ask a question. Like literally, if you want to rely on that report and you care about the integrity of it, ask questions. If you don't, check the box and move on. But if you are in TPRM right now, just think about it from that perspective. Forget about all this other stuff. Just say, is this firm, like, are they like Do they have ownership with the platform, or are they getting money? Is there independence? Start with that. Start pushing back on those ones first, and then we can start to move forward. But I think people just see all these issues and don't know where to start. Well, that's where I would start. 1,000 TPRM, that's it right there. Start with that. And let's move
I
on.
think you might need to change the name of the podcast to I'm not naming names. That might be. Well, at least show that a few times.
Well, I can't get too in trouble, but yeah, that's
That's
where I
okay.
would start.
It's all good. I mean, again, no one's perfect. I'm sure every vendor and every firm in the space has made mistakes, but it's just the question is, do you own it when it happens? And what are you doing about it? Like I said, like Drata, we want to be part of the solution. We don't want to be part of the problem. We do not want customers long-term getting a bad experience on the audit. We also don't want them getting a bad experience when they take that audit attestation to, the enterprise they're trying to sell to. And so there's a balance. Maybe audits have been overpriced this whole time, and this is like a market rebalancing, or maybe it's not. Maybe somebody's going to step up soon, and these lower price firms, they're going to get found out that the reason they're lower price is because they're not actually doing the work required. I don't know what the answer is. I don't. I'm learning every day, but I don't know how it's all going to pan out. And this is where I try to publicize this stuff on LinkedIn. We have an auditor advisory board where we have this conversation. Again, you guys have all been part of it. I want to hear it. I don't put it out there. I don't care. I want folks to call us on stuff. My biggest challenge, again, is because I represent Drata, is we get lumped in with some of the others, right? And so that's also hard to change. They just see our space as our space. Hey, if you're in the compliance automation space, you're all I mean, maybe. I don't agree with that, but I want the conversation to happen. And I would really appreciate folks to have an opinion and to be specific when they express their opinion versus just generalizing and saying, hey, it's all the compliance automation players.
I think it's because people just associate audit firms with automation platforms, and then they kind of lump them all together. But I would just focus on the firms, the audit firm. I mean, they're the ones issuing the report. I think that's where the focus should be. And that's where I try to point the focus, but we talk about it. Who's gonna force them to change? Not me. Yeah. I mean, I can't force them to change. I can just do podcast episodes.
Hey, just do podcast episodes.
And post meetings. That's all I can do. I can't do anything else.
Yeah, without naming names. No, it's cool. I just, again,
some names.
I think I cannot stress this enough. I think the biggest gap is education. I think that's in every industry. There is not enough emphasis on education. I would love to see audit firms take their enterprise customers that they have a strong relationship with and say, hey, do you agree this is a problem? Yes. Cool. Can we work together? Because at the end of the day, they're not getting their SOC 2 via Drata to sell the Drata. They're getting their SOC 2 via Drata to go sell it at JP Morgan and Boeing and Best Buy. If those companies start taking a public stance with their audit firm saying, hey, we're not okay with these. This is what we want to see. It matters to us. And we're going to start putting a priority on this. It's not going to happen overnight, but there's going to be this shift. The market would take notice, right? And I don't know if what I'm talking about is just not doable, or if it's just people having priorities.
Doable. It costs money though, right? I mean, if you're going to start pushing back on vendors with their audit firms, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to go find it. What are we going to do with that?
That couldn't possibly be more expensive than if they onboard a firm that's not actually compliant. And because of that, they have some type of supply chain or TPRM breach issue. I think about some of these players who have partnered with chip makers in the space that have gotten popped, and then they get popped or lose, again, there's a lot of nuance to it, but how much security, the thing we used to say when I was at Expanse, the first meeting we'd have with the customer, the thing we would do very quickly because we were not in a known space, right? It wasn't like GRC, it was attack service management, which didn't even exist yet, is we would say, identify with the first 10 minutes, is security an initiative or a story? This customer. If it was a story, we knew we weren't going to sell them. They're like, hey, they're just trying to tell the right story. They're not going to invest in it. They're just going to go get the lowest level thing. They're going to get their college degree, right? The lowest level competency you need to be able to do business. versus it's an initiative. Everything we do has security waved into it, laced into the fabric of what we've, that customer, we would sell millions of dollars worth of stuff to because it was a priority. And I think that's the same thing that I'm kind of getting us here is which customers, especially as we move up market, is it a story or is it an initiative? Which customers the CISO and what the CISO thinks support matters to the board level versus, it kind of gets swept under the rug. Those are two very different businesses. And it's really not that hard to figure out which one they are after talking to them for 10 minutes. There's a few questions you asked. You'll know very quickly whether security is a story or it's an initiative. I think that's there are two very different worlds of enterprises.
It's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
Good way to end the episode. I like that. That was good.
Cool.
All right. Hold on. We're gonna do this one last thing. Kevin, any last parting words? You've obviously shared quite a bit, but any other last little bits before we kick you out the door?
No, I would this is like a personal message to just the audit community. I know we say it on LinkedIn a lot. The words don't really matter though. It's the best you can kind of do on some of this stuff when we do PR and whatever. But Troy, you and I have been friends for a number of years now. As much crap as I give you about living in Pittsburgh, we will get you to San Diego at some point.
Hey, we're not trying to have people send us mail here about people that live in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a great city.
No, it's a great place. My father's from Philadelphia, great state. Just saying, San Diego, it's 72 degrees today and it's late November. But anyways, and go Steelers.
You just went down like half the United States. But anyways, just go on.
My wife's from Minnesota. Also, shout out to the people of Minnesota. You can also move to San Diego. It's just the auditor community. If you're seeing stuff that you want to fix, we want to be part of that. Seriously, we want to be part of that change. So I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. I have these conversations all the time with folks that'll come into my inbox. We don't, because it's not like we created the GRC space. The audit firms created this space. They are the stewards and the owners of this space. We want to help in a way that we think that we can be the connective tissue to make things even better between auditor, client, and ultimately like the enterprises that they're selling to. We are not perfect. We don't know it all, but we're asking for that feedback. The thing that I don't want is for this silence and some of this like gossip pockets. We're here, we're willing to talk. We want to figure it out. But I want to be very clear, like some of this stuff, we just, we're doing the best we can without being Troy Fine. I am not Troy Fine. I'm learning from Troy Fine. And the more feedback you give us, the better we're going to get. If you stay silent, then get used to whatever's happening already. Like that's kind of my challenge to the audit community is if you don't speak up to the people who can create change, I think I'm one of them. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, I'm asking for someone who doesn't have a background in the space, who's learning every day. Right? That would be my ask, my challenge, my encouragement to the audit community to allow us to be alongside of you, to be good stewards as well. That's our intention.
That takes us to the end of the episode. And Troy, I don't know if you're picking up some ideas like I am, but I think we need a panel of enterprise organization who accept low quality, shitty audits and ask them why, first of all. Second of all, why do they impose upon those 10 person companies do that? That's got to go in there.
That's a good one.
Find those guests. That is the other question. So we'll have to figure that out.
They might have to go black screen without their naming themselves. I don't know.
We do have voice changing capabilities, so we'll see how that goes.
I mean, yeah, it's like the smaller companies. It depends on how sensitive the data you're handling. I don't know. This depends.
That's why we're here. That's the whole point of this podcast and this series. All right, everyone. That is the end of our episode. Kevin Kriebel, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your piece. Mr. Troy Fine for tolerating my chicken noises that may or may not be in the post edit. If you hear that, by the way, my bad, baby chicken showed up. All right, that's the end of the episode. We missed Kendra. I will be back for more.
Thank you for listening to GRC Uncensored, the podcast where Troy and Kendra know their shit, and our producer just talks shit. To learn more about GRC, go to grcuncensored.com, subscribe to our newsletter, or join our community on Reddit. Viewpoints expressed during the show do not reflect the brands, employers, or companies of our hosts, guests, or sponsors.